Sorry to disappoint you, but we're only doing one today. Can't win them all. Okay, so today we're going to be reviewing some Sohcahtoa. Now, Sohcahtoa and Pythagoras are two things that you will use till you finish working in any mathematics or engineering or anything like that. They always show up in proofs, and they always show up in, you know, if you're designing a $20 billion building, it's still going to need some Pythagoras in there, okay? So you, a lot of surveying done, a lot of angles, a lot of, yeah, I mean, it is a, things go straight up and down a lot when they build buildings, so you need to know these things. Now, this is always good to write at the top of any page because it helps keeps things straight. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. And we've got tan is opposite over adjacent. Okay? Now, how do you know what's opposite? Well, when you talk about this angle, if you were here, standing right here, there's only one side you could shoot an arrow to and actually hit it. The other two, it would just skim right along. Okay, so that's always your opposite angle. Okay, that's opposite to theta. Now, we're actually going to learn about all of their buddies, and they're the reciprocal trig functions: cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Now, cosecant is 1 over sine. Secant is 1 over cos. And cotangent is 1 over tan. Now, how do you memorize these pairs? Well, this one should be a gimme. Cotangent and tangent. They both have the word tan in them, so they will always be buddies. Now, how do you know that secant and cos always belong together and cosecant and sine always belong together? This rule goes for all three of them, but there is only one co per pair. So you know cosecant and cos should never be together. They are not the inverse of each other, or the reciprocal. Secant and secant and sine should never be together because there's not a co in there. Now you could say, well, what if I put cotangent with sine? Well, then I'd be going, but that doesn't even sound good, okay? So even though there's only one co per pair, the cotangent and the tangent really give away they should be together. So it's just the cosecant, sine, secant, and cos that you might mix up, but now you never will, because if you ever see cosecant and cos in the same thing, you know you did it wrong. Okay, they don't belong together. But, so just one co per pair. Maybe I'll use the number 1. And really, cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. Right? Because what was sine? Opposite over hypotenuse. So it's the reciprocal of that. Secant, I should be putting theta here, sorry, secant theta, is hypotenuse over adjacent. And cotangent is adjacent over opposite. So, yes, that you can memorize all these. You need to know all these very well. But if you know Sohcahtoa, and you know there's only one co per pair, then given 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds, you should be able to figure it out. Now, yes, memorizing is more efficient, definitely very quick, but it fails us the most. So when you know something, yeah, it takes a little bit longer, but it means you're going to get it right on a test for sure, instead of just memorizing it and maybe you got it mixed up and maybe used it 5 times on your test, okay? Now, we're not going to be talking about opposite and adjacents anymore. we've got to talk about actual sides. Now, this is a coordinate right here, and it's x comma y. And do you see how it's x comma y? Because if you come out x, that is your length of that base, but it's also an x coordinate. And how high you go is y. Well, that would be, the height of it. Okay? And r is the hypotenuse. Now, in this one, instead of using opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse, we're going to use x, y, and r. So do you see that sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so y over r. So what would cosecant be? That's sine's buddy. Good. Would be r over y. That's sine's buddy. So they will be reciprocals of each other. Cos is x over r. Therefore, secant is r over x. Now, tan is opposite over adjacent, y over x. So cotan is x over y. Okay? And then the little policeman has a stop sign and says, you should memorize this formula. So that's like the understatement of the year. You need to know these perfectly. Okay? One copra pair. And your Sohcahtoa will get you through if you need to. Now, we completed this chart last year and came up with the castorol. Do you remember the castorol? Now, I'm not going to do all the quadrants. I'm going to do 2 quadrants so you can see how the castorol works again. So let's do quadrant 1. Now, quadrant 1, see how y is positive there? It's a positive on the grid. And this is positive here. We're in quadrant 1. So, since sine is y over r, well, y is positive, that's positive, and a positive divided by a positive is a positive. Now, cos is x over r, right? So that's a positive over a positive. So that's positive. And tan is, now, what is r? What sign is r? Always, always, always. Positive, okay? So remember that sign, or the radius is always positive in all of these quadrants, okay? So tan is y over x, so that is positive over positive, so that would be positive. Now, one thing we see is all of them are positive, right? Now let's go down to quadrant 4. Now, in quadrant 4, y, well, it's negative there. But x is positive, and r is always positive. So sine is y over r, so y is negative over r is positive, so that's a negative. Cos is x over r. X is positive, r is positive, so that's positive. And tan is y over x, so that's negative over a positive, so that's negative. So only cos is positive in that. Now, just by going to quadrant 2, what do you think would be positive but sine, right? Now, why is sine positive? Well, let's think about it, because y is positive here, right? And r is positive, so that's why you get the positive over positive for that one. But because x is negative, all of the other ones will give you negative answers. And this one, they're both negative. That's a negative y, that's a negative x. So only tan is positive, right? Because it's the only one with x over r. So that's negative over negative, which is positive. Now, before we go on, the buddies all have the identical rules. Okay? So, in quadrant, let's do quadrant 4. Who is sine's buddy? Who's sine's buddy, you guys? No, who's the buddy? Cosecant. So cosecant would also be negative. Well, we could even write them over top. So cosecant would be negative. So you see how you take positive divided by negative, flip it over, you're still going to get a negative. In cos, who's cos's buddy? So secant would also be positive, and tan is cotan's buddy. Cotan would also be negative. So you have to know the cast rule for both of them, but they're the same rules as long as you know who the buddy is. So you really don't have to know any rules. You have to know the cast rule and whose buddy is whose, and you can figure out what their sign's going to be. Okay? Now, there it is right there, the cast rule. Or you could use, if you want to start at quadrant 1, you can also say all or add sugar to coffee. Okay? Or you could come up with anything else, I guess. But the cast rule comes if you start in quadrant 4. Okay, now let's kind of see what this means. Okay, well, it says without technology, determine if the ratios are positive or negative. Now, sine 280, the first thing you should always do is draw a picture. 280, well, I know where 270 is, so 280 is about right there, okay? Then I do my cast rule. Now, since I'm in quadrant 4, what would be the answer to this? Positive or negative? Negative, good. Okay, let's do B. Tan 7 pi over 6. Okay, so I'm doing my picture. Now I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm right here, 7. Okay, so that's where 7 pi over 6 is. I put my cast rule. What's tan? Positive. Now, do you see how when you get good at the unit circle, it's pretty fast. Like counting to 12 is the worst you're ever going to have to do. And when you see 12 pi over 6, you're going to kind of should know that's 2 pi. Okay? But the more you use it, the better you get at it. And it's good. I saw a lot of people doing it today. They even had 2 pi over 6, or negative 2 pi over 6 was their answer. And I just had to get them to reduce it, because remember, it should be negative pi over 3 when you reduce it. Okay? Let's do cosecant negative 225. Now, draw a picture. Now, negative 25 means we're going this way, the opposite direction, right? And there's 180, and there's 270, so we better be somewhere around here, okay? So that is my negative 225. So we are going to end up in quadrant 2. Put our cast rule down. Now, who's cosecant's buddy? Sine, right? So if sine is the buddy, it follows those rules. What is the rule for quadrant 3? Positive. See, a lot going on. You need to know a ton to do this, but it's not really hard. You just need to know a lot of stuff. And this is, again, why people just get killed on this part of the diploma, too, if they haven't shown up for class. Like, how do you do all this? Okay? Now, cotan negative 13 over 6. Now, negative 12 over 6 gets us right to where we started, right? So we can count all the way around, or just figure out that we're going to start again at there. Right? That is actually what happened, is we had to go all the way around and then come back. That is negative, now that's cotan negative 13 pi over 6. Who's cotan's buddy? Tan. What is tan in quadrant 4? Negative. And these are extremely fast if you know your unit circle as well. Now, you are finally, right now, at the point where every single question, you got to look if it's in radians or degrees. That's the mode you need to be in your calculator. Now, if you get to the diploma and you still are not fully disciplined on that, that's a shame. okay? Because you're going to do it in your homework. We're doing it now. We're just always going to have to look. We got to be very hypersensitive to looking at the question before. So it's going to be no more, okay, guys, make sure your calculators are in degree mode. You can begin. Okay, you're not going to hear that in the gym anymore because you have no idea what mode you're going to be in until you read the question. Okay? Now, if you look at the 2 units on Trig, this will be the biggest component on the diploma. So be very careful which mode you're in, and it'll switch from question to question. Now, how do you figure out cosecant 5 pi over 6? There is no button on your calculator to do that, or life would be pretty easy. So you have to do what is on your calculator, and that is, I've got to use sine, cos, or tan. Remember, the sine -1, cos -1, tan -1, that is how to find angles, not the reciprocal of cosecant. Now, the way you do it is you have cosecant 5 pi over 6. That's the same thing as 1 over sine 5 pi over 6. Now, sine 5 pi over 6, if you go to your unit circle and find 5 pi over 6, it should be the y value. So what's the y value? 5 pi over 6? 1/2. So this is the same thing. Sine 5 pi over 6 equals 1/2. So 1 divided by 1/2 equals 2. That's how you do that. Okay, so you just kind of 1 divided by 1/2. Basically, you just take the reciprocal of it. Okay, if sine 5 pi over 6 is 1/2, cosecant will be 2 over 1. If it was root 3 over 2, the reciprocal would be 2 over root 3. Okay, so now instead of just finding if it's negative or positive, why don't you just put these in your calculator? Find the sine of 280. Okay, so what I want you to do, I want you to do these, and then I'm going to ask people for their answers, okay? So it's just a matter of putting it in your calculator. It's not rocket science. For these, just put 1 over if you want to get the correct answer. 1 over sine, cosecant, you're going to change to 1 over sine, and cotan, you're going to change to 1 over tan. That's how you do those, okay? So check what is in the question. That's what mode you have to be in. Okay, try not to compare answers. Let's just see if you can trust your own. Okay, just one more minute. Just write it down to 4 decimal places. Okay, let's see what we got here. Let's go backwards. We'll start at F. Alex, what'd you get for F? Okay, well, I gotta get F done first. Who's got F done? Jamie got F done? What'd you get? 1.7321. Okay, now, was cotan, or was that negative? Yeah, we got a negative, because these are the same questions as above. I don't know if you figured that out. Okay, E. Alex, you done E? No. Just go 1 over. Make sure you put it all in brackets. I don't know what happened to that one. Sienna, did you get E? Really? Is that what everybody's getting? No, I'm not getting that either. Okay, what are you getting? Okay, so we got a few problems there. All you do is 1 divided by sine negative 225. Maybe you're in the wrong mode. Have you been switching back and forth your modes? Well, you should be in degree mode for E. Check this thingy right here. That tells you what mode you're supposed to be in. Okay, D. Jamie, what'd you get for D? 0.8940. Everybody get that? Was everybody in radian mode? Try it again. Sine 90 in radian mode. Should get it. Okay. This is with nothing, it means radian mode. I tried to tell you guys that yesterday. That's going to happen to you, right? So it's my job to make sure you get to the diploma. You've been burned so many times that you're just ready for it, okay? Because if you're making those mistakes in the diploma, that's going to cost you, and we don't want that. Now what'd you get for B? 0.5774. And A, Felicia. Good. Okay, so if you see a degree sign, be in degree mode. If you do not see a degree sign, be in radian mode. Write that somewhere, your forehead, whatever you need to never forget it. Okay, let's go right to example 4. Okay, now example 4 says rewrite the same trig function of an acute angle. Now, right now, these are all obtuse angles. Acutes are between 0 and 90. So this is how you can, and this is a highly valid question on a test. And we did these last year, but in degree mode. Okay? But let's find out where 7 pi over 4 is. Now remember, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm right here. That's 7 pi over 4. So the first thing you do is obviously determine where you are, right? Okay, now also put your cast rule. Now what would I be in this quadrant? What would cos be in this quadrant? So it's going to be positive. Okay? Now what I always do, I only put an arrow on the final one so I don't get mistaken. What were those other lines? Those other lines were recounting, but the one with the arrow is the one we are actually doing, right? highlight it here so you guys can see it. Okay, so that's one we're working on. Now, it is positive, and then you have to find the, what we call reference angle. So 2 is determine sine. 3 is find reference. And what is the reference angle? Remember, reference angle between 0 and 9 has to be to the x-axis. What is that reference angle? Pi over 4. So your final answer is positive cos pi over 4. Now, how do I know that these two are the same? Put them into your calculator, okay? So I want you to do this, everybody, because I want to show you something. What is cos 7 pi over 4? Just press equal. So clear your screen so there's nothing else on it, because I want 3 things on your screen at one time. Oh, I hate that thing. Okay. Oh, I got 2 calculators open. That's awesome.
This is Viv. Please come to the office.
I've got on my... Okay, so we should have tried putting in cos. Okay, 7 pi over 4. Oops. Okay, and we get that. Now, if you put cos pi over 4, you get that. Now, if you look at, can everybody find 7 pi over 4 on their unit circle? Has everybody found it? Now, cos is always the x. Cos 7 pi over 4 is the x. What is the x coordinate? Root 2 over 2. So just put in root 2 divided by 2. So the quick way you're going to know how to do these is you're going to go cos 7 pi over 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's root 2 over 2, negative root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. And if I asked you sine, it would be negative root 2 over 2. Okay, and if I asked you tan, it'd be negative 1. Because it's y over x, right? Tan is y over x. And then I could ask you all the... But when you know your unit circle, your pencil will not be able to go fast enough to be able to do these. I have students that are that good. They can just cruise along, and the only thing that's slowing them down is their pencil, okay? So once you know your unit circle well, you will find these very easy. Yep. The x value is, when you look at what is cos, let me get back here. See, here's our triangle, okay? So there's x. Or sorry, there's x. I would have screwed up my whole theory. So that's adjacent over r. And what is r? Is 1. R is always 1 when we do these. So x divided by 1 will be x. And the y value will be y divided by 1 is y. So sine and y go together. And tan is y over x. Okay, and then you got to know your cotan, cosecant, and secant, because they're all just the reciprocals of those. Okay, let's go right down to this example here. Now the point 15 or negative 15.8 is on the graph there. Now remember what this means. This is like a triangle. And the 15 and 8 or negative 15, we would be negative 15 there, and that is 8. Now this isn't on the unit circle, because if it was on the unit circle, r would be 1, and r isn't 1. But the first thing they ask us is, how are we going to find that length? How are we going to find r? Who's our buddy that we can use? Pythagoras. Okay? Now, you know how it's always been a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, ours is going to be x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And even to be more efficient, it is the square root of x squared plus y squared equals r. So whenever you want to find r, you're going to use Pythagoras. So Sohcahtoa and Pythagoras, you're just going to use them. The highest level math course you'll ever take, these will still come into it. In calculus, you got to know Pythagoras. So all we do is we just go 8 squared plus negative 15 squared. Now, if you don't put that negative 15 in brackets, you actually get the wrong answer all the time. So make sure you're putting that negative 15 in brackets, because that makes it positive. Okay? So what is the length of r? And remember, it should kind of make sense. 17, very good. Now, all you want to write down now is sine theta equals cos theta equals tan theta equals. Who's sine's buddy? Cosecant theta equals. Cos's buddy is secant theta equals. And tan's buddy, cotan theta equals. Now, does everybody remember what sine is? It is out of x, y, and r. How do you find sine? Y over r. Remember, it's always y over r. So what is y? Look up on your graph. 8. R is 17. So what would cosecant equal? Very good. 17 over 8. So their buddies are just reciprocals. Okay? Notice that they are just reciprocals of each other. Okay? Cos was x over r, right? X was negative 15 over 17. So what would secant be? Negative 17 over 15. Good. So when they ask me for all 6 of them, this is how I always do it. I go Sohcahtoa, and then I just do their buddies underneath, and then I get the top ones and do the flip. Tan is y over x, which is 8 over negative 15. Now you can have negative 15 over 8 for okay? Now, this question has written response all over it. Okay? So, yes, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to put a question just like this on your exam. This question, you need so much understanding that me giving you the heads up just accomplishes my goal if you're going to go study how to do these, okay? Because this tells you nothing unless you know what you're doing. Then it tells you all you need to know. Okay? Now, I'm not even not even gonna do any of this stuff. We're just going to draw a picture and actually think about it. Now, the first thing we've got to do is find which quadrant we're in. Now, you're only going to do this by knowledge and elimination. Now, it says cotan is root 5 over 2. I just want to look at this for a second. Just that. I don't care about the rest of the sentence, just that. Where are we? if cotan A equals root 5 over 2? Which quadrants? 1 or 4. Why? Because tan is only, remember, this is tan's buddy. Follows the same rule. So we have to be either here or here. These are off. And now we're going to do the rest. And sine is negative. So which quadrant is cotan positive and sine negative? 3. See, sine negative, it can be in 2 quadrants. And cotan negative, or positive, can be in 2 quadrants. But cotan positive and sine negative only occurs in quadrant 3. So this says quadrant 3. Together, so this and this says it's got to be in quadrant 3. Alone, they're going to tell you only 2 quadrants. Together, they will tell you 1. So they share that. Now, it says complete and find me cosecant A and secant A. Now, you should probably know what you're looking for before you go trying to find it. I think that kind of makes sense, right? You just go try to find something, somebody's going to ask you what you're looking for, and if you go nothing, I don't know. Okay, they're going to think you're nuts. So, if I am looking for cosecant A out of x, y, r, what is my formula for cosecant A? Okay, so you're saying, but let's first do, well, what is sine A? If you're saying right there, I would do this. What does sine A equal? Like, figure out its buddy. What does sine equal? Come on, you guys need to know these. What letters? Y over r. Therefore, cosecant is r over y. Okay? I also need, if you look at the question, ask me for cosecant A and secant A. What is secant A? Who's secant's buddy? What's cos A? X over r. Therefore, secant A is r over x. Okay? Now, by looking at this, cotan A equals root 5 over 2, what do I know? So I just draw the same triangle every time. I don't really care about the angle. So I'm drawing this triangle. Tell me what I know. My x and my y values. What is my x value? No. It'd be impossible for there to be a root 5 in this quadrant. Negative. It's a negative root 5. Like, look where it is. What is the y value? What is it? Negative 2. See, that's why tan's positive, because when you divide the 2 out, the positives cancel. Okay, this is an excellent question, unless you're a math student. If you're a math teacher, you love this question, okay? So, I can go figure this out, because I know my x, I know my y. I can figure out my r, my radius, by using Pythagoras. Remember, r equals square root of negative root 5 squared plus negative 2 squared. Okay, when you put it all in, what do you get? You get r equals most people could even say this one in French. What is it? 3. So now, cosecant A is r over y. So that is 3 over negative 2. which is the same thing as negative 3 over 2. You can put that negative anywhere you want. Don't put two of them in there because that's positive. Secant is r over negative root 5. Now you're not allowed to have a radical in the bottom. So root 5 times root 5, that is 3 root 5, negative 3 root 5 all over 5. Now if you look at the question, the amount of actual writing you have to do is probably one of the least for written response. But you have to know so much to do this question that it is a nice quick question on a test. And I get to see how much you know. So it's a win-win. So expect one of those in the diploma and one on, at least one on your unit exam. So 1 to 4 A, C, E, and 5 to 15.